master shall know unending power.
Your kind shall never ordain the first edict. And now, you. Redemption. The enemy returns. This world must be purged! Your fate's worse than death! Behold, the light! You fool. If they obtain the Mother's Soul, our civilization died for nothing.
Hello everyone, this is my 0.5 Disciple of Varastha build. If I check my slash played for the league, I have played for like an entire week. All this time has been dedicated into min-maxing and playing this one build. I have not played a second build this league, and this is my only build. I usually do play 1 or 2 builds every Path of Exile 1 league, but for some reason I don't really play multiple builds in PoE2. I don't know why that happens, it just seems to be the case. Anyways, this is not intended to be a build guide, but I will try to make this video as in-depth as possible. I'll explain some crafting. I will also explain the order of upgrades, and I will also be explaining the mechanics of this build, in case anyone does want to know. So, initially I did want to make a POB, but a lot of the unique items and like Ascendancy passives in this build just straight up do not work in POB. I assume that is the case for most of the builds, so I guess they need to get that updated. Instead, I will be linking my poe.ninja, and hopefully it does enough. To explain the gems that I use in this build, we do not use a main skill gem for damage. We instead use djinns that are granted by our Ascendancy skills. So as you can see, there's 3 djinns that you can pick up in your Ascendancy. You can use any of these. Kalari the Tainted Sands is like sort of the best one because it does physical damage. You can convert that physical damage to chaos damage. It also has a 50% critical damage bonus, and it inflicts critical weakness on hit. So if you're using Kalari of the Tainted Sands, you only need 50% minion crit, which is basically what I have. And the 20 stacks of critical weakness that you inflict are just gonna like provide the rest, basically. So we are gonna be a minion crit build. Now, I'm not gonna go fully in depth into all the skill gems and the support gems that I use. I'm just gonna talk about like my main skill. All of this, you can just check the poe.ninja, it's all going to be there, and you can just use the same thing. I'm going to be talking about my lineage supports. So our main damage skill is going to be Kalari's Deception. For this I use Kurgol's Leash, which gives me Unholy Might to my Kalari minion when I use the command skill. Command skill are what we use, and I will explain like how you scale your command skills later on. And I also use Varana Siege. This is slightly expensive, so you can basically get this later on and like not use this for a while. But it does give you a lot of area effect, as you can see. The area on this skill is pretty big. If I were to take it out, it would get slightly smaller. I don't know if it gets smaller. Can't really tell from this small screen, but Heft is like the most replaceable here. Instead of Heft, you do want Ulnatol's Embrace. If that's the correct gem, it gives you 40% physical damage as chaos. Since our djinn primarily does physical damage, we will be basically converting everything to chaos. And chaos damage is going to be like the main damage type for this build. It is a very premium damage type, as it does not care about armor, it does not care about elemental resistances. And there's a lot of map mods that scale the enemy monster and elemental resistance, but we just completely ignore that because we don't do elemental damage. We do physical and chaos damage. So Unholy Might is going to contribute to that. And the last gem that you're going to get, Ulnatol's Embrace, is going to basically contribute to that, but that lineage support costs like 400 divs. If you don't want to get it, you can just skip out on it, but it's going to be like a very big damage upgrade. As you can see, I did not really get it, because even though I put like something like 1200 divines into this build, I still didn't get the support gem, so I guess it wasn't in my list of upgrades. But that would basically be like the last gem upgrade I would make. So as for the other gems, most of them are just minions. We do put most of them on Muster, and I do have Muster as like a main support for my Kalari the Tainted Sands. Muster basically gives you 5% more damage for each type of reviving minion you have. So all of these minions are just there to contribute 7% damage. They don't do much besides that. So I basically just put like armor break supports on them. Most of them are just going to be breaking a lot of armor. And since my main damage skill is a physical skill, the armor break is very helpful. This skeletal brute minion does have a Uruk smelting on it. And this basically makes it so that when this minion fully breaks enemy's armor, they take 5% increased damage up to 20%, and this is permanent. So every time this minion breaks armor, it puts a 5% damage debuff. This is really good against bosses. You might not really see it against normal enemies, If you're fighting very tanky rares, you might see this happen, but I doubt it. Like, this build does too much damage for, like, the minion to fully break armor. I did put a Amanamu's Teeth here. When this minion dies, it has a 50% chance to give us an Abyssal modifier. I honestly do not know what the Abyssal modifiers do for the player. I don't think this is too important. I don't think the modifier is like even that good, and it doesn't happen too often because these minions, we don't kill them ourselves, they have to naturally die, so that's usually not gonna happen. I don't think you need to use any more lineage supports. I do have a Blasphemy setup with like Clarity and Upwelling. Upwelling gives you minion damage when this skill is active. Our active skill that we use on Blasphemy is going to be Despair. I think I can replace this with Enfeeble. That is going to make us tankier. And since I'm only using Kurgol's Leash, I'm not using the other gem which gives us 40% physical as chaos. I think it might be better. I'm not too sure what the best curse to use for this is. But you can make that choice, I guess. I do have a Spectre. The Spectre is just a powered zealot. It has like sort of the same supports as everyone else. It has Muster and Last Gasp. This is just for the 7% damage bonus. So Muster does say reviving minion. I'm not sure if the Jinns count as reviving minions. So I'm not sure if adding an extra Jinn actually gives you the 7% damage bonus. I have not tested that. This discipline is granted from the Scepter. I don't think you need to have a discipline. I think having a skeletal warrior minion is like much better, which you get from the Rattling Scepter. I just went for the extra defense because I think I need defense way more than I need offense at this point. So it's down to the preference, I guess. It's down to your preference. Now, the other important skill is Navira as well, from Navira the Last Mirage. This is going to be like your second Jinn skill that you take. The reason this is important is because when our energy shield drops, we can basically just pop this skill, and then our energy shield starts recharging immediately. Unlike Convalescence, this does not stop the energy shield from like not stopping when taking damage, basically. What the fuck did I just say there? Basically, you know how Convalescence has this effect where taking damage does not stop recharge. This does not have that effect, so you need to like back off and then just like not take damage for a bit when you're using this. You can just use Convalescence, but if we wanted to use Convalescence, we would have to get rid of the Blasphemy setup. So that's like a sacrifice that you have to make. And the cooldown for this is much shorter than basically the Convalescence cooldown, because it is a command skill. We get a lot of cooldown for like command skills in our passive tree. This will make it so that this recharges very fast. And this is going to be your survival option. We do not get faster recharge of energy shield, and we do not get any energy shield regen. So this is basically going to be what you use when you're really low on energy shield. To explain the mechanics of this build, we basically deal damage by using our commands from our Jinn minions, which are these skills right here. Now, command skills do have cooldowns. If you don't know what minion commands are, some minions can have these command skills which, when you use the skill itself, the minions basically do this skill. It does have a cooldown, as you can see. The cooldown starts happening after I use the skill. You cannot spam them like you can spells, but they still cost mana. So even though they have a cooldown, they still cost mana. When you start off with this build, it's not gonna feel as good as it does right here, because as you can see, I can just like spam the skill, and I just do a lot of damage. But because this does have a cooldown, this does not scale based on cast speed or like minion cast speed. This is based on minion cooldown reduction. It's gonna start feeling really good when you get Bidding 3, because it gives you an 80% cooldown recovery rate for command skills. I think there is like minion cooldown recovery on the passive tree. I'm not sure where it is. Oh yeah, this right here. Minions have increased cooldown recovery rate. That's basically what you want to get. Your biggest source of cooldown reduction for your command skills are going to be from Puppet Master stacks. So basically, when you're early in progression, this is like one of your earliest passives you're going to take. You're going to take this right here. 35% surpassing chance to gain Puppet Master whenever you use a command skill. Puppet Master basically gives you reduced movement penalty. It also gives you skill speed, so your minions do your commands faster. It's similar as like your minions having like attack and cast speed basically, and it also gives you increased damage. The minion increased movement speed is not relevant, but basically because we have a lot of puppet master stacks, you see the commands get faster. I can also move around pretty freely because I have a lot of puppet master stacks, so the penalty is basically gone. This makes it much better to play compared to spell builds. The other important thing for this build is Archon of Undeath. Basically what this does is it gives you a buff, which gives you more minion damage. Oh, this is not increased minion damage, this is more minion damage, so this is very significant. It also gives you 200% more cooldown recovery for command skills. This is going to be your biggest source of minion cooldown recovery, and getting this buff is going to make your damage skills really fast. It also has this line of text here. It's not very important. It just makes you able to summon more minions, basically. Basically how an Archon buff works is that you will have the buff for a certain amount of time. I think the base time is like 10 seconds. So the buff is, you're going to get the buff for 10 seconds when you use enough command skills, which you basically get from this right here. Yeah, you 15% chance to get an Archon of Undeath when you use a command skill. When you're playing with the buff, it's going to feel really good because your commands are really fast. But you do end up losing the buff, and after you lose the buff, you're going to have a 20-second downtime where you basically get a debuff that makes you not be able to gain this buff again. You can mitigate that early in progression by getting these notes over here. So these notes over here give you increased buff duration for the Archon buff, and these give you reduced delay period for like the Archon of Undeath like debuff that stops you from getting the Archon buff. You can also get these right here for duration, but after we get our Dominion Anoint, which makes it so that we do not have a recovery period after the buff expires, we can just keep getting the buff over and over again. So you do not need these notes that give you increased duration and reduced Archon buff delay, basically. Alright, next I want to talk about my gear. I'm going to start off with the important uniques first. For my body armor, I use Silks of Veneration. This body armor is pretty good because it gives you elemental damage reduction based on your current energy shield. I do have 22,000 energy shield, and I think around this amount you get like a 70% damage reduction for elemental damage. Now keep in mind that when you go lower on energy shield, the damage reduction does go down. So let's say you have like 15k energy shield because your energy shield dropped down from taking damage. Now you only have 50% damage reduction. I don't know what the actual numbers are. I do know that at my current number, this is close to 70%. This can be replaced with a rare body armor that has spirit and more energy shield, but I think a rare is going to make you overall less tankier. I did buy this with like a third socket as a corruption. This costs around 20 divines for me, I think, for like the corruption. This also gives you 50 spirit, which is like really nice. If you do not want to use a iron rune as like your second or like third rune, depending on how many sockets you have on this armor, you can instead use a rabbit idol. Let me show you what the rabbit idol does. This gives you increased rarity of items found when you use it on a body armor. If you do not meet your 150% breakpoint, you can use that instead. But once you hit your 150% from other pieces of gear, you do want to move over to an iron rune to get more energy shield. The other unique I want to talk about is Eshtera's Path. Now, I did try to increase the lightning modifiers on this. I did realize that it doesn't actually increase the modifier, even though it does mention like lightning here and resistance here, which are like tags for the modifiers. I don't know if this is a bug or if this is intended, but this basically doesn't get increased. If it got increased, that would be pretty cool, but I guess it doesn't, so I just stopped qualitying it. The only thing that you can really quality on this is like the attributes. I don't really need them. So basically what this ring does is it gives you 10% fire and cold resistance for every item that I have with a lightning resistance modifier. It also gives me some item rarity, which is really good. It can go up to 20%. I do not have a max roll. This piece of gear early in the league was very cheap. I think I bought this for like 17-ish divines. These have blown up in price, so if you get it right now, it's going to be much more expensive. I do have 4 items with lightning res right now, so it gives me 40% fire and cold res. That is basically equal to a tier 1 res roll on its own. So I'm basically getting 40% fire and 40% cold res from this ring, aside from the resistance and the attributes. I can get 5 or 6 lightning res rolls, but I don't need to get that because I'm already res capped, so I don't need to basically gear for this ring anymore. But if you are struggling to gear for res, this ring is really good. I do think it's best in slot. You can replace this with a rare ring, but I don't think you're gonna match the raw amount of stats that you get from this ring. It basically also makes gearing for resistance a lot easier because you're getting 1 less resistance roll in each of these pieces, and when you're getting 1 less resistance roll, the cost of these other pieces are just gonna go down by a lot. Like, instead of getting 2 resistances, getting 1 resistance just makes like a single piece of gear like much cheaper. That's like a nice thing. It also gives us a jewel socket. I'll talk about this jewel socket later on and why it's like so important. For our other pieces, I guess I can talk about the amulet. The amulet is gonna be your first good piece of gear. Basically, like when you have a lot of divines, this is gonna be like the first one you invest in. The important stats that you need are you don't really need the rarity on the amulet, but you can get rarity if you want. This piece of gear can roll rarity. The most important stats are the minion levels, the spirit, and the energy shield. You basically just want to get as much as you can afford. I would prioritize the spirit and the minion skills first, and then the extra stats. It also has lightning res for my eshtera's path, and I do anoint Dominion. The reason why you want to get the amulet as like your first good piece is because the amulet gets a lot of good rolls, like the plus levels and the spirit, and you do want to anoint you do want to do this anoint on a really good amulet because these anoints are not cheap. These anoints are very expensive. My ring is honestly, it just has lightning resistance and it has minion damage mods along with item rarity. The only mods that matter here are the item rarity, resistance, and the minion mods. The other mods don't actually matter, and your ring is not going to be a very important piece of gear for this build because you cannot get too many mods that benefit you a lot. You cannot craft this ring because these minion mods cannot be crafted onto a ring. They can only be... When you get a ring from a breach tree, it can get special mods. These 2 mods are like among those special mods. And since you cannot craft these mods into the ring, you cannot like start off with a base and then craft into this ring. You have to buy a rare ring with these mods on them. So good luck finding a good ring, I guess. You can't really craft these, so you basically have to buy this off of the market or get it from a tree. You can craft the rare ring to start the chaos orbit after you buy it with the minion mods, but because one of these is a prefix and one of these is a suffix, you do run the risk of replacing one of these mods. I am not too sure what's the best way to craft this. Our other pieces of gear are just going to be rare gear with a lot of energy shield on them. The helmet just has energy shield, rarity, and +1 to minion skills. The focus should have +2 to minion skills. I do not have it on my focus because I guess I just don't care enough. But this piece of gear cannot have rarity, so this is where you're going to gear for resistance. It can also have mana regen if you need a lot of mana regen. My gloves are just a 30% quality gloves that I self-crafted for energy shield, and they do have tier 1 energy shield. Your suffix doesn't matter aside from the lightning res, which again is for the eshtera's path, so I get more fire and cold res. It does have rarity. I will talk about how you can craft this piece of gear later on in the video. I did self-craft this, so I do have the process down. These boots can also be self-crafted, but they're like much tougher because you basically need to get this suffix that says increase effect of socketed augment items. You can get it by using a... Where is it? You can get it from a Essence of Horror, which guarantees a increase augment items mod by removing a suffix. with how I set up this build, the suffixes are not too important, so you can just craft for prefixes and then just like remove any suffix for this augment. You do want a base that has 2 socketables. You can corrupt this for a third one. I will not be corrupting this because that's just very risky, and I'm happy with like a 2 socket, I guess. But your socketables are going to be increased energy shield and then increased movement speed. This is going to be like a big source of movement speed. Our prefixes are just going to be 35 movement speed and just a lot of ES. Everything is tier 1. I did not self-craft this, I just bought this off of the market. But if you self-craft, you cannot use an essence because you can only have 1 crafted affix on your item. And this is going to be your crafted affix. If you use a essence when you're making this from magic to rare, that's gonna basically count as a crafted modifier. So with how we're crafting this, if you happen to roll a rarity through like a prefix, not like a prefix, in the suffix with like your perfect aug when you're crafting this, that is very good. Otherwise, it is very hard to get rarity on this piece. Other than that, we do put a catigans on our gloves for another jewel socket. The reason why you want a base with 30% quality instead of 2 sockets is because catigans will destroy all sockets when it makes a jewel socket. So if you use a 2 socket, you're gonna lose both of them. There isn't any way to save them, so it's better to just use a base that has a 30% quality instead of 2 augments. I don't understand why both the bases, which is like the 30% base and the augment, double augment, cost the same. Actually, maybe I do know. I know that some builds want marksman mods, and then they want the socketable for the marksman mod, and then they will like destroy the augment with the catigans. Maybe because of that craft, they are about the same. But usually the 30% quality should be more expensive because it ends up with you getting more energy shield compared to if you were to use 2 sockets. So for our jewel sockets, we use these 50% energy shield jewels. I will talk about how to craft these as well, because they are self-crafted. These are the only rare jewels I use in my entire character. The passive tree does not use any rare jewels, and these are a big source of energy shield. Like, if I were to remove one of these jewels, I go down by 1000. If I were to remove both of them, I will not be even 20k anymore. So these give us a lot of energy shield. I also have minion crit on this, which basically gives me a lot more damage. And last thing I think is my scepter. Your scepter just needs to have +4 to minion scales and just some extra damage, minion damage mods, and it just needs to have spirit. I did not put too much importance on this. You can get a mod on your suffix that says +5 stacks of Puppet Master, which you basically get from this, the Rune Binder's Alloy. If you want to use this to craft your scepter and get more stacks of Puppet Master, which basically like gives us more damage, more skill speed for the minions, and like more reduced movement penalty. I don't think the reduced movement penalty is like too important from the extra stacks because we might already be capped out, but you cannot craft a scepter like this because it already has a crafted mod. So you basically need to use your augs and your regals to craft a perfect scepter, and then use this to add a crafted mod onto the scepter. It is going to be very expensive, and two of our most premium affixes are suffixes, so risking these being removed is like very bad. That's going to be a very expensive craft, and even if you buy it, it's going to be very expensive. My scepter I just bought for like 20 div. I have not upgraded it because I do not feel the need to have more damage. But if you want to completely min-max the character, you would have all these stats. Instead of increased damage crafted, you would have like increased damage as like this blue modifier, which is just like a natural mod instead of a crafted mod. And then your crafted mod is going to be a Rune Binder's Alloy, which you do have to 1 in 3 in order to like not lose one of the 2 suffixes. Or if you do happen to fracture the minion skills, then you do have to 50-50 to lose this mod. I don't think the 3rd suffix is going to be too important, so you just want to save either this or this. Now, there is a way... I'm not too sure. There might be +1 crafted... crafted modifier. Okay, this right here. Can have 1 additional crafted modifier. If you have a double socket scepter that has 2 sockets, you can basically slot in Astrid's creativity into it. Then you can use this essence mod for more damage. And then after you're done with the item, you can 50-50 the item with like a Runebinder's alloy. That would be the way to craft it. It's gonna make the base much more expensive. And you might not even hit the fracture. You can see why I didn't try to craft this piece of gear, because it is very annoying to do. This build does use a Mage Blood. I use a Mage Blood with Legacy of Ruby, double Quicksilver, and gold. The gold basically gives me my final bit of rarity, which I think I can show here. I have 142% rarity. A lot of it is coming from the Mage Blood. The Quicksilver gives us more movement speed, which my character has 80 movement speed. When I couple the Mage Blood movement speed with like the movement speed for my boots. Legacy of Ruby, just there to solve the fire resistance. If you do not have a Mage Blood, you're just gonna use belts that have lightning resistance and fire resistance. You can get triple resist, but keep in mind that the more resist that your rare belt has, when you swap over to the Mage Blood, you are gonna lose a lot of it. But since my build was properly set up, I was able to swap over to the Mage Blood pretty easily. You do not have to swap to a Mage Blood. I'm just a PoE 1 player, and I like Mage Blood, so I had to get the Mage Blood the moment they added it to PoE 2. The Life Flask is not important. Our Mana Flask is a Lavianga, which gives us a lot of passive mana regen. And I basically use this so I don't have to click the Mana Flask over and over again. It gives us way less regen, but all of this regen is just completely passive, so you do not have to press this at all. I use a Rite of Passage. The Rite of Passage is a Spirit of the Ox. You cannot really use any other Rite of Passage for this build. This one gives you reduced slowing potency of debuffs, so when you get slowed, you will get slowed less. And then also 20% reduced damage taken. Those 2 mods are really good. The other charms can be like to your liking. I use a Freeze and a Ignite charm. I use the Ignite charm because when I use my Navir as well, I will not be able to regen because of the Ignite. I will also talk about the cost of all these individual gears. The Eshtera's path, I think, costs anywhere from 50 to 60 div at this point in the league. I don't know why they got so expensive. The Silks of Veneration with the Corrupt should cost around 20 div. I think this helmet was around 80 div, but if you do not get it Sanctified, it might be more expensive because Sanctified pieces of gear cannot be... you cannot like craft on them anymore, so that's why this was cheap. I think this one is very cheap because it just has resistances. If it has +2 minion mods, then it's going to be a lot more expensive because the plus minion skills mod is like the very important mod here. I think this amulet was 50 div. The anoint was... it should be around 5 divs right now, but the anoint was a lot more expensive earlier in the league. I don't remember the cost of the ring. It might be anywhere from 10 to 20 div. I don't think it's going to be too expensive if you get the same mods that I did. This might have been a lucky snipe. This might cost you more. I can estimate the craft of the gloves pretty well, because when I self-crafted these, it cost me around 70 div. But if you were to buy them off the market, it might cost like 300 div. So there's a lot of money to be saved from just like self-crafting this piece. You can save a lot of money from self-crafting a lot of pieces actually. This scepter I also bought for like 20 div and sanctified it myself. I got like more increased damage, which was pretty good. If you were to get stacks of Puppet Master, the crafting cost, and if you were just to buy it, like if you were to buy it, it might cost anywhere around 300 to 400 divs for like a perfect scepter. But if you were to craft it, it might cost like 100 divs or something like that. The boots I just bought for 160 divs. Because it did not have perfect prefixes and it had a bad suffix fracture. But I don't need to do anything with this, and I don't need perfect suffixes because there aren't any more stats I can get. All the stats I could get are like the prefixes, and suffixes are just like not important aside from the socket augment. If you were to self-craft this, it might also cost... Actually, I think the self-craft for this is gonna cost about the same as if you were to buy it. Because the base, the 2-socket base for like the boots are around 80-ish div for Sekima sandals. This base is very cheap. If you get a 30%, you can buy it for like 20 to 30 div. The Mage Flood costs around 500 to 600. The Rite of Passage, Spirit of the Ox costs like 15-ish divs. Lavianga is very cheap. It doesn't cost anything. I think that should be all the gear. And you don't have to invest this much into the gear. This is just sort of how much I ended up investing. But you can basically do the hardest content in the game by investing much less. Like, you don't even really need the Mage Flood. You don't need a Headhunter either. You can just go around with a rare belt. Next, I'm gonna talk about my Ascendancy. So we are a Disciple of the Varastha. These are gonna be our first 2 Ascendancy points. And this is gonna be our main damage skill. It doesn't do anything passively. This is just gonna be our skill that we use to deal damage. So when you're early in progression, you don't have to get Navira. You can instead get this, which gives you faster energy shield recharge, because it makes you have less delay. The base delay or like energy shield recharge is 5 seconds, and this makes it so that it's only 4 seconds. It also gives you more energy shield recharge when on low energy shield. This is not that amazing for our build because we do not get faster recharge, which would scale incredibly well with this. But since we don't get it, I ended up not getting this in like the endgame Ascendancy tree. You can also after that spec into this, which gives you a lot of physical damage reduction from having energy shield. I also do not use this in endgame because I do not have enough passives to allocate this. This is incredibly good though. This is basically our only answer to physical damage, but because I cannot allocate this, my only answer to physical damage is getting more energy shield, which is basically what I've done here. I get a Ruzan here. I do not get any of his skills because the only thing that is important is the skill that he grants you, which is this right here. So to explain why I need this, if I were to use my Kalari's Deception without having Archon of Undeath, it uses all the cooldowns, and then I need to like build up the cooldowns again. And Archon of Undeath is like only 15% chance, so I can use all 3 of these skills and I can end up not getting it. But this skill right here, it doesn't actually have a cooldown. So you can just keep using it and it builds up your Puppet Master and then it gives you Archon of Undeath. So you just spam this until you get your buffs and then you start spamming your main damage skill. If you don't have this or you didn't get this, you can allocate your other command skills and then use them, and after like you've gotten your buff, then you can start using this skill. But this makes it much easier because you can just keep spamming it. It does cost mana, but you can just let your mana regen. And then you can just like spam it to get your buff again, and then you can use your main damage skill. That's basically why we have this. It's just to make our playing easier, just for quality of life, I guess. Since I'm not taking a skill, I can just allocate the 20% maximum energy shield here. In Path of Exile 1, this would be kinda inefficient, but in PoE 2, this is fine to do, I guess. My last Ascendancy passive is gonna be Baryanic Leylines, which increases the... So, this passive doesn't work in PoV either. That's why the PoV doesn't show the right numbers. That's why I didn't want to do a PoV. Because this doesn't work. Like, Eshtera's pad doesn't work. Like, PoV is just broken right now. But it doesn't show the increased radius in PoV. In order to see the actual increased radius, you have to, like, check your actual time lost. So, because we do have this, because our time loss have increased radius, I do use 2 time loss jewels in my passive tree. This time loss is going to be very important. I think this costs around 40 to 50 div. And it basically makes it so that all the notable passive skills in Radius have minion mods. And then I also get increased energy shield from the small mods. So these smaller mods right here give me 3% maximum energy shield. And then these notables give me 9% minion crit and then 11% minion critical damage. This is the reason why I'm able to scale my crit damage so high, 441 to be exact. And after you have made the upgrade to this time lost, you basically want to grab a lot of notables around this radius. So these passives do nothing for our build. They're just there because there are 3 notables that you can grab for free, and they just give you a lot of damage. You will also be taking this, which gives you increased minion evasion rating. That does nothing for us, but this is just a free passive for us to grab because it's close to other good passives and it just gives us minion crit. So basically the idea is that we will use this to convert the notables to give us increased minion crit chance and crit bonus, and then we just use this to scale our crit chance and crit bonus. And as you can see, we don't really need these either, but we just grab them just so we can have more damage. Instead of using this second time loss, you can also use this jewel, which lets you allocate passives around ritual cadence. And if you notice, the passives around ritual cadence are in the radius of this time lost. So basically we can allocate this passive, this passive, this passive, this passive, and these two. These are going to be 6 passives, which we basically just allocate just so we can get the effect of our time lost. You can self-craft this time loss. Upgrades radius to very large. I think it's from a liquid. Upgrades radius. This one right here. Potent liquid melancholy. It is pretty cheap. It costs like 1 chaos. It is like a 50-50, I think. So you have to like 50-50 to either remove your maximum energy shield or like any other mod. If you do not get the energy shield and just get the suffixes, this is going to be a very easy craft because then you don't have to 50-50 it. If you had to 50-50 it, then like if you mess this up, you're going to need to redo your craft because spamming chaos is going to ruin your entire piece and you're going to need to do it again. This 50-50 is really important. If you don't want to self-craft this, just buy this piece of gear. I don't really know what the perfect method to self-craft is. I just bought this because it seemed very annoying. We do get mostly energy shield nodes. This pathing is going to be in poe.ninja, so you can just check it yourself. But the first thing we grab is basically going to be Puppet Master. And then we go to Archon of Undeath. And then we want to grab these... we want to come here and grab this basically. Then we want to grab these minion damage nodes. And then you want to come here, get this minion damage and minion AoE. And then you want to get these Archon nodes, basically. That's going to be like your progression. After that, you do want to go down here and get these extra skills, which give you increased damage for command skills for each persistent minion you have. So similar to Muster, this is also giving me damage based on how many minions there are. But these minions need to be alive. I can't just like have them socketed as gems. These actually need to be alive. So if your minions die, you will actually lose this damage. You also pad down here. And then get this growing swarm because it gives you area of effect and cooldown recovery. But because there are 4 useless passives here, you can just get a Megalomaniac, and then Megalomaniac anoints this growing swarm node. Your second notable doesn't matter. You can just get a growing swarm. It's going to cost you like a div to just get growing swarm. If you want a second good notable, that might cost you 15 to 20 div. And it might not even exist in the market, but basically the notable I have gives me 20 maximum energy shield, which is pretty good. Not really much to talk about here. I'm just getting a lot of energy shields, some mana regen that I need, and Archon nodes. Chaos Inoculation is absolutely necessary. And you will basically swap to Chaos Inoculation after you have around 3,000 to 4,000 energy shield. If you swap before that, I don't think it's very good. I think you need to have around 4 or even like 5,000 energy shield before you go to CI. It makes you immune to bleeding and chaos damage, which is pretty good. If you took this node before you had CI, you're basically going to remove it because it makes you immune to bleeding when you have an Archon buff. And CI makes us immune to bleeding just by itself, so we don't really need this. So if you have this allocated before CI, just get rid of it after you get CI. Basically, I have some extra passives here that grant maximum energy shield because we do not have too many passives that are very useful for us around this area. So we just end up grabbing some extra energy shield over here and over here. Now, the second time lost is going to be a bit different because there are not too many notables around this area. There's only 1, 2, 3 that I grab that I actually need. I instead focus on the small passives on this. This still upgrades the radius to large, but I do get the notable for increased hit chance to basically cap out my hit chance to around 50%. But I get 25% increased effect of small passive skills and radius. And I also get 3% maximum energy shield from passive, similar to that other time loss, to get a lot of energy shield. This time loss was very offensive. It gave us a lot of damage stats. This time loss is going to be very defensive, and it gives us mostly energy shield. And so this 25% needs to be 25%. It cannot be any lower. So if you get a jewel that has less, you need to divine it to 25%. I actually hit a very disgusting divine on this because everything is maxed here. So I got a bit lucky. I don't think you're going to get as lucky. I don't think these need to be maxed. You just need to max this and get this to 25. Because this minion AoE, it starts out at 8%. If you get less than 25%, it only goes to 9. But if you hit a maximum of 25%, it goes to 10. So in order to hit that breakpoint, having 25% increase effect is very important. We can also increase the effect of these energy shield nodes to give us more energy shield. As you can see, I'm getting 18 here, 18 here, 16 over here. I'm also getting increased effect of Puppet Master, which is pretty good. There aren't too many passives to grab here. We still have 4 notables, so I do get some minion crit, but these minion damage nodes do get upgraded and the minion AoE nodes get upgraded. If this extended a bit further and went to this energy shield, that would be pretty good, but can't have everything, I guess. I think this second time loss is the most efficient way to set up this tree. As I said before, instead of using this time loss, you can use Ritual Cadence. Having Ritual Cadence and anointing these extra passives will be more damage compared to the time loss, but I think the time loss makes you way more tankier, and I think that is much more important. These nodes you don't really grab unless you have this time loss. So when you don't have the time loss, you just want to have the Ritual Cadence and you unallocate these nodes and just like allocate these ones. And these nodes don't really do much, similar to like these over here. You just get them for damage. They're kind of just there for damage. Like if you don't really need the damage, I recommend getting the second time loss. This second time loss is much more cheaper than this one. This one is around 50 div. This one is only around like 15 div. So this is like much cheaper to get. Okay, next I'm going to talk about the crafting process for the gloves and the jewels that have socketed into the gloves and the ring. Now these gloves are really easy to craft, but before you craft them, make sure when you're getting a base, you get an item level 82 base. Do not get a base that's less than item level 82, because only level 82 bases can roll the highest tier of mods. If you get a base that is like lower than 82, you cannot roll the highest tier of mod anymore. If you get a base that is item level 82 and is 30 quality on Siren Scale gloves, that base is going to cost anywhere from 20 to 30 div. And after you bought that base, make sure to get a 30% quality base. If you can afford 2 sockets, you can get them, but it doesn't matter for what we're doing because we're going to use a catechins anyways. So it's best to just get a 1 socket base with a 30% quality, because sockets on the glove don't actually matter. What you want to do first is you want to perfect transmutation and then perfect aug until you either get flat maximum energy shield or increased maximum energy shield. And any resistance mod that is tier 1, after you do that, you want to basically use an essence to give this item increased rarity of items found. Rarity of... Oh, I did not type that correct. Rarity of items found. So this essence right here, Essence of Opulence. This is guaranteed to upgrade the item to rare and then give it this mod. This does not add any additional mods. It only makes the item rare and makes it a 3 mod. If you do not get increased energy shield or like increased maximum energy shield, the flat base, and like a resistance, you just want to keep annulling. So you will take the magic base, you will, if you get the wrong mods, you will annul it, and then you will keep using perfect augs. You're gonna keep doing this until you have your prefix and suffix that you want, and then you want to use this essence mod. Take the item to rare. After you've taken the item to rare, you basically want to use this over here. Where is it? Prefix. You basically want to take a Omen of Sinstral Necromancy and you basically want to take a ancient riv, and then you want to click this and then desecrate the gloves to desecrate a prefix. So it is guaranteed to desecrate a prefix. It doesn't remove any mods, it just adds the desecration. After you've done that, you basically want to take a omen of greater exaltation. This is very cheap, it doesn't cost anything. You might have one in your stash. You want to take an omen of greater exaltation, and then you want to take a perfect exalted orb, and then you just want to slam it. As you're slamming it, you're hoping to hit any good second or third suffix. I guess it's going to be the third suffix because we already have a res mod and a rarity mod. You want to have a good suffix. If you don't hit a good suffix, it's fine. The prefixes are really important. You want to either hit a tier 1 hybrid mod or a tier 1 of like the other mod that you didn't hit. And if you do not hit this, if you miss on this part, you basically just want to reveal the desecrate and then sell the base and then start again. Because after you've done this, after you've hit the perfect exalt, fixing this base is going to become much more expensive. I think it's cost efficient to just sell the item and just like start on a new base. You might make some profit from crafting this, so I don't think you can lose money from doing this. But you basically just want to... Your prefixes have to be energy shield tier 1. It can be anything. It can be hybrid, it can be flat, it can be like main increase energy shield percentage. You basically want to desecrate to get the other mod. And as you're revealing the desecrate, you want to use a omen of abyssal echoes. So if you get a bad desecration, you can just re-roll it. If you end up getting the mod that you want, which is going to be one of the energy shield mods that you're missing on the prefix, your item is done and you can be happy with it. If you did not get the mod, then you want to take a omen of light. And what omen of light does is that when you annul your item, you take an orb of an element and remove a mod, it will remove the desecration mod. So if we do not hit the desecration, we just want to annul it off with the omen of light, and then you just ancient riv again. This time you do not need this right here to add a prefix, because our only open mod in our item is just the prefix that we removed. So this is guaranteed to add a prefix, so you can just use this without this omen. And you just want to keep repeating this until you get the mod you want and you have triple tier 1. Once you are done with that, you basically want a quality of your item and then use a catigans. This has also gotten really expensive. It used to be 10 divines, but it's just like a couple chaos now. And after we've done that, the craft is done. It is a very easy craft. I recommend people to do this craft instead of buying the item, because if you buy the item, it's actually like 300 div. If you just do the craft, it's going to cost you like... if you are really lucky, you hit the... If you don't have the Omen of Light and you just hit the Desecration on the first try, it's only going to cost you like 50 div. And even if you have to use a couple Omen of Lights, it's only going to go up to like 80 or 90 div. Because you are using a Abyssal Echoes, you have 2 chances to roll the mod that you want. And the weighting on all the mods is 1000. So basically, if you didn't get the mod, you just got unlucky. Like, the mod is not that hard to hit. This craft is really easy. In order to do the jewel crafts, you basically want to take a base that has increased minion critical damage bonus. You want to get this fractured. I think getting this fractured actually costs like somewhere around 20 to 25 divines. After you bought the 25 divine base, you want to... Firstly, you want to annul it down to 1 mod. You don't really have to do it, but it makes the rest of the crafting easier. And then you want to basically chaos spam this item until you get maximum energy shield. And after you get maximum energy shield, you have 2 mods, right? So you want to take a...
What's new?
What's it called? Omen of... Is it Sinstral? You want to take a Omen of Sinstral... No, it's the Dextral. You want to take a Omen of Dextral Exaltation. And then just use an Exalted Orb. And then add a suffix into the jewel. This suffix you're going to use... Increase effect of prefixes. You're going to use Potent Liquid Ferocity until you hit the suffix. And then you get the increased effect of prefixes. Keep in mind, this can add increased effect of suffixes instead and remove your energy shield. If that happens, you just start chaos spamming the item again, and then like you add another suffix and then try again. This should only take 2 to 3 tries. These are like around 3 div. You just want to keep doing that until you've hit the effect of prefixes. After we've hit this, the craft is basically done. Because you have 3 mods. You're going to have this mod, then you're going to have this maximum energy shield mod, and you're going to have the increased prefix mod. Then you want to desecrate this jewel. You want to desecrate this jewel using a... what's it called? A preserved cranium. Preserved cranium desecrates this jewel. It is guaranteed to add a prefix because that's our only open mod. And you want to keep doing the same method with like Abyssal Echoes and Omen of Light until you get maximum energy shield and increase minion damage. After you've done this and you've gotten the right mod, which I think is pretty good waiting, I got this mod first try on both of these jewels. So I don't think it's very hard to hit it. But after you have hit it, you want to divine this item until this is as close as possible to 60%. And these are as close as possible to max. I think you want to have at least 50% total energy shield. And after you've done that, your item is done. And then you want to quality up the defense modifiers on this item. That is very important. It's not going to be very expensive. It's just going to be like a couple div. So these are really easy to craft. These only cost like 50 div. Even if you have the Omen of Light, these should be crafted under 100 divs, even under the worst circumstances. Because the craft itself is not very expensive. The base itself is way more expensive than the craft. If you get very lucky, you can craft this within 30 divines. If you were to buy it, it would cost around 200 divs. Which is why I recommend to craft this, because this is a very easy craft, and if you were to buy it, you have to pay like anywhere from 8 times to 5 times the amount of money. I definitely recommend crafting this. I did forget to mention this earlier, but the reason when you're crafting this item, you don't specifically need to hit the lightning res mod. You can hit either a fire or a cold res mod. The reason why that is fine is because you can take a crackling flux, and then you can transform any fire or cold res mod back to like a lightning res modifier. So it's fine if you hit any res, you can transform it anyways, and doesn't really cost anything. So that's like totally fine. It makes this craft like much easier. So that is gonna be it for this video and for this league for me, because I am kind of done. My first goal for this league sort of was to like get a Mage Blood, because I saw Mage Blood got added. As a PoE1 player, I had to get it. After I did get a Mage Blood, they did the expedition changes, which kind of pulled me back into the league. At that time, I was only like 13k energy shield because I hadn't upgraded the build enough. After I started like playing that last sort of week, I upgraded the build a lot and I ended up getting 22,000 energy shield. The first initial goal for the build was Mage Blood, but I ended up like making it a goal to reach 20k energy shield, and I was like, yeah, that's the final thing I'm gonna do for this build. I'm not gonna do anything. I can invest more divines, I can make more upgrades, but I think it's okay if I don't do that because I want to basically move on to PoE1. I don't plan on playing the Total League, but I do want to play the next main league that comes out in PoE2. And I think you can hit much higher energy shield. I think like 25,000 is like totally possible, because you can basically not use the time lost and instead use up voices, and then you can add more sinister jewel sockets. That's gonna add a lot of energy shield, because a lot of our energy shield comes from the 50% ES jewels that I crafted. You can use way more of those and the ES number goes even higher. You can even get higher energy shield on all the gears that I have. You can use a rare body armor for more energy shield. But like I said, min-maxing the energy shield is not a goal for this build. I think I've hit all the goals and I think I'm done with this league. Thanks for watching this video. Goodbye.